What's up, everybody? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm your host, Robert Durden, and this episode is about how Bernie Sanders is now, he has already, he's proving how much better a president he would have been than Joe Biden since this Palestinian-Israeli conflict has been going on, and it is so obvious in this instance. Like, this is one of those things where it's like, it's night and day with what we got versus what we could have had, and that's why I like to throw it in people who voted for Joe Biden in the primaries face whenever stuff like this happens, because if you guys have seen, his comments on Israel-Palestine have been sociopathic, man. He is like, Israel has the right to defend itself, and again, taking everything out of context and acting like Hamas just arbitrarily is blowing up places in Israel, when he neglects to tell you that Israel's the one that are shooting people inside of churches. Israel's the one that's been bombing people and killed at least 18 children so far, including a bunch in a refugee camp. They blew up the media center building that had the Al Jazeera and the AP, or Associated Press, bureaus in it yesterday, along with a bunch of residences. These are war crimes. There's ethnic cleansing, apartheid, and war crimes going on, and Joe Biden won't use any of those words, but Bernie Sanders at least is standing up, and you knew he would on something like this. So I'd like to read to you what he wrote. He wrote an op-ed for the New York Times, and I'm not going to read you the whole thing. I'm going to read you a synopsis here. So bear with me. Offering further evidence that the rights of Palestinians are receiving more vocal support from U.S. Congress members than any time in living memory, Senator Bernie Sanders on Friday published an op-piece in the New York Times demanding a more even-handed and morally consistent approach to Israel and Palestine that promotes peace. Early in his essay, the independent senator from Vermont posed a question. Why do we only seem to take notice of the violence in Israel and Palestine when rockets are falling on Israel? Whenever this happens, Sanders noted, Democratic and Republican administrations declare, as President Joe Biden did earlier this week, that Israel has the right to defend itself. Quote, Israel has the absolute right to live in peace and security, but so do the Palestinians. I strongly believe that the United States has a major role to play in helping the Israelis and Palestinians build to that future. While Hamas was firing rockets into Israeli communities, it is absolutely unacceptable, Sanders wrote. But today's conflict did not begin with those rockets. So he understands that Hamas isn't just, some terrorist organization that is arbitrarily going around and doing these things, that they are actually not the provocateurs here. The Israelis are the provocateurs. And the reason Joe Biden won't go after them is because he's in the pockets of the Israelis. Same with the Saudis, which is exactly why he didn't pull out of Yemen. And everything that he does is going to be working backwards from the conclusion that our allies are good no matter what. We will work backwards from that regardless, which is why he says sociopathic shit like he just did about how the Israelis have the, they have the right to defend themselves. Yeah, but they're the aggressors. They're the aggressors. Do Palestinians have the right to defend themselves? They never answer that question, do they? So the second half of this video has to be, guys, here are the 5 things I just thought of off the top of my head before this video, that if we had a President Sanders instead of Biden, beyond the awful response that the Biden administration has had with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that Sanders would not have had, these are 5 more things that would be changed regardless of what the Senate looked like, assuming that Ossoff and Warnock win. Let's assume that. But assuming that the Senate looks the same as it does and the Congress looks the same as it does with the House, this is what Bernie would have done right now that's better than Biden 100 days in. One is the $15 minimum wage. He would have fired the parliamentarian, and he would have made sure that his VP voted correct in the Senate. He would have forced it through budget reconciliation. We would have a $15 minimum wage if Bernie Sanders were president right now. 2, the PRO Act would not be DOA. The PRO Act is the Protect the Right to Organize Act, and easily the most influential and most important piece of legislation that's left on the docket that we could possibly get done under Joe Biden. It would make joining unions easier. It would ban, union busting techniques. It would ban right-to-work laws. And again, it's been stripped out, or it's been alluded to being stripped out by the Senate parliamentarian for the next 2 or 3 bills, because they're going to do an infrastructure plan built in with like the families plan and the jobs plan. We don't know what's going where, but she's already said that the PRO Act isn't going to be allowed through budget reconciliation. Bernie would fire her, or strong arm her and say we're going to overrule you, and we get the PRO Act included in one of these upcoming bills for infrastructure or families or jobs. But Biden's not going to get that done, even though he is on paper pro-union and on paper pro-PRO Act. He's just not so pro-PRO Act that he's going to overrule the parliamentarian and strong-arm Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, which Bernie absolutely would. Number 3, we can do these next 2 by executive order. So it doesn't fucking matter what anyone else has to say. He could have done these on day 1. And really the last one, he can too. Marijuana legalization and forgive all student debt. You can do both via executive order, and don't listen to anybody that tells you you can't. You remove marijuana from Schedule 1. It decriminalizes it across the board, and you can do that unilaterally. And the Higher Education Act of 1965, Section 432A, states that you can, in fact, forgive all student loan debt via executive order. Don't let anyone gaslight you otherwise. Number 5, Medicare for COVID. Now, I don't think he would be able to get Medicare for all necessarily, although I would hope he would fight for it, and we would probably end up with something like a public option. But what he can do, as I've said 3 or 4 times on this show, he can designate COVID as a national emergency and use a clause in the ACA that allows him, during the entirety of that emergency, he can do Medicare for all, which gives us Medicare for all for the duration of COVID. And you can keep that going as long as the pandemic's going, which in this country it's going to be maybe, years, maybe forever if it becomes endemic, which is looking more and more likely now. But that's a way he could, behind the scenes, like in a really easy way, you just declare it a national emergency, which Joe Biden declared a state emergency for Texas during the blizzard that knocked out their power supply, and everybody had Medicare in the state of Texas for the duration of that power outage. Bernie could do the same thing, and it says on his website that he would absolutely have, when he was running for president, he said he would absolutely designate COVID-19 as a national emergency, which means that he knows he would have been able to get everybody health care. So all of you Bidenites that, voted for the more electable guy that's in there doing exactly what Trump would have done, especially when it comes to things like genocide and ethnic cleansing in Palestine, blood's on your hands. Palestinian blood is on your hands. People that voted for him in the general election, you know what, I'm giving you a pass, but anybody who voted Biden over Bernie in the primaries, this shit is on you, because we could have had President Sanders if it weren't for you fucking knuckleheads. So, I don't know, maybe people don't really want to have marijuana legalization, their student loans forgiven, free health care, a good chance at getting unionization and a $15 minimum wage, but as far as I've seen, those are all like 70 to 80% issues. We would have had them all already if Bernie were president, but no. We need to put the guy that was there with Obama so he can take care of the racist Trump, right? We gotta put the more electable guy in there, right? He was barely alive during the debates. He clearly has Parkinson's and other types of dementia. And he's in there committing or backing up war criminals. And he himself is a war criminal because he was instrumental in getting us into Iraq. So this isn't surprising for Biden, and all of you guys that voted for the war criminal who's now doing war crimes, blood is on your hands. Shame on you. Vote correct next time if you don't want me to get at you. So this frustrates me to high heaven because, these are things that Bernie could have done by himself, essentially. Just one guy could essentially get this done if you just strong-arm Sinema and Manchin on the PRO Act and the $15 minimum wage and overrule the parliamentarian, boom. Bully pulpit. And we have $15 minimum wage, marijuana legalization, all student loans forgiven, and health care. But no, the Bidenites didn't want that. So thank a Bidenite today for all they did for this country by voting for blue no matter who. So I'll talk to you guys later. And again, I don't want to get too harsh on the people who voted for Biden in the general. I don't want Trump in there, of course. But for the people that, voted Biden when they had other options in the primaries, shame on you. Shame on you. All right. Keep fighting the good fight out there, guys. I'll talk to you later.